I would be so okay if every episode of this show ended with our boy Rizel trying to accustom to the human world more and more. This week we get the whole, he tries his best to clean, he is doing his best to vacuum, but just so happens that the plug is not in the electrical socket, and our boy Frankenstein is once again not only just saddened by his inability to be able to do normal things, but also the fact that he is his master and he's literally making his master do the servant's work. And he wants to die for that atrocity, and I love that so much. I will definitely say, though, Noblesse is one of the most criminally underrated shows that you can watch this season. I'm not going to say it's the most criminally underrated, because it does at least have a viewer base that is loyal to it. That's at a pretty decent size, but I can't deny that this deserves so much more hype than it's getting. But at least it's not as bad as some of the other shows that also deserve hype and people are completely overlooking them. This show, to me, it does what I really enjoy, and I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. I like it when shows have a very serious story, but a majority of an episode is kind of wrapped around a pretty simple setting. In this case, it's a school setting where you have vampires, you have hunters, you have this noble race, you have normal school hijinks. You have characters like Yusuke, who seemingly you would think are superhuman, but just, they care for their friends, and he can take a beating for one way or another. I don't know how, but he just kind of can. There's a lot of little elements at play that aren't overly serious, and people will look at that and say, oh, why are we looking at this? It's stupid. It doesn't make sense. How could this serious thing interact with this basic thing? But that's the beauty of anime. It does its own unique creative flow that other mediums can't do because it would feel off-putting. Imagining a story like this in a live-action format, it would be beyond cringy. In this setting, for me, it's not. I know some people would argue it is, but there's something about the way all the characters are interacting that really bring out every bit of elegance that this show has going for it. And before walking into episode 3, if you were to ask me who is the star of the show, I would have said it's M21 for sure, because M21 has this amazing way to just really turn everything on its head, and I think he has the most serious side of the simplistic, and it's really interesting how he's really trying to find a reason to live, find the names that he's looking for, because really, he has never been given an identity up until Frankenstein hired him. So I love that story, and I think everyone's going to dig that sort of perspective. Rizel is also really interesting because, it's pretty hard to mess up your main character who has such an intriguing backstory. Nonetheless, he's just automatically was fit for success. But I would also say Yusuke was up there as well. And I know the original in the webtoon, it's like Shinwoo or something like that. But the actual anime has changed the name for Japanese audiences. So I'm going to use the Japanese name just because that's what the characters in the anime refer him to. So I do know there was an original name before it got changed. So just know I'm just following, because if I start saying Shinwoo, unless people have read the source material, people are going to be like, who the hell are you talking about? And even then, the source material readers may be like, who the hell are you talking about? But just wanted to throw that out there. But I will say, though, with episode 3, walking out of it, there's multiple stars of the show now. I really feel like all of the characters really had a moment to shine in this episode, or at least the ones who have been given a really prominent role. I love Regis as well as you have M21, and they have this little frenemy rivalry going on. I mentioned it last week how I love how he's just so disappointed that this man gets a bigger room and M21 just kind of brushes it aside because he's a bratty kid. In this episode, the same thing happens. You kick it off with, you get more food than me and I get more soup. I don't like this. This is horrible. Why aren't you mad? And just nonstop, it's just this, he feels like a bratty little brother to his older brother who just kind of pushes his head as he tries to run at him to hit him. It's hilarious and I love that dynamic, but it's really interesting the deeper you go in this episode to see how far he was really trying to be like, okay, I don't trust you at all, but it seems like you're in danger, I'm going to stick up for you, and then M21 takes a blow for him. While it does put into perspective that Regis thinks that, oh, he's actually, he's 100% still part of the Union, he's an enemy, I can't believe I was even starting to drop my guard around him, I'm going to kill this guy. Even though we know from our perspective what M21 was really doing there, he was taking a blow for, honestly, a frenemy at this point. I'm not going to say friend because they're not at that level, but they do feel like frenemies, which I always love that dynamic because it allows for, there's companionship there, but at the end of the day, they're probably going to punch each other in the face a few times over before they go to bed. It's interesting to have that dynamic because this is a character who doesn't understand what identity is because he was born to just be a weapon and now has seemingly been given one, and now he's actually taking actions into his own hands, even though it's going to put other people in the spotlight of saying, oh, he's actually a bad person. It gives him a reason to continue to live and actually benefit from what Frankenstein has done for him. There's a simple moment in this episode where he gets his paycheck. Frankenstein didn't realize that he wasn't receiving pay And he's like, didn't even see that as an issue. To have like a super soldier who's never had an identity and never had any reason to live, to him just working for free is nature of the business. And then you have Frankenstein being like, no, you get paid. You're not some servant. You're not some slave here. You will get paid. And it's a very nice moment to progress him towards being more of a person. And I doubt he's going out anytime soon. If he does, if M21 ends up dead, I will be disappointed beyond belief. But if it does provide for a good narrative flow, I'm not going to be complaining. I'll just probably have some tears in my eyes. So that dynamic between them is all well and good. I think introducing so many characters can be risky, especially so early on. Episode 3 really did prove it right. I mean, you have this hacker dilemma. You have on two different sides, simple school side, and then you have an organization up to no good. And you have this back and forth hacker dilemma. And I love it because it's so fun. It's so simple. And something anime always does is they have fun when a side's hacking. Like they'll send them a present, they open that present, it's goofy faces that just obliterate the screen. It's simple, it's goofy, and they're doing things faster than realistically possible, especially with a lot of things that they are doing. But it's nice to have that rivalry that they're both just impressed at how, like, how are you doing this? Okay, let me up my game, let me up your game. In return, you're just having this really interesting frenemy dynamic blossom because they're really enemies. Of course, we have one character not really knowing. Manabu doesn't know that, he's up against someone who's like going to savagely kill him if he gets on his bad side. But at the end of the day, he just kind of thinks like, oh, he's trying to hack into the police database. I'm going to stop him. I'm going to warn my family, things like that. But then you have this very funny scene with Yusuke who comes in, trips the cord. He's not even running on battery for some reason on a laptop. Doesn't make sense, but nature of the business. And when he leaves to call I think it was his uncle or someone in his family, he has this chat because earlier in the episode, he's like, oh, he likes guys. I thought I had this like buddy who we could go chase after girls with, but you know what? He's my friend. I'm going to respect his decision. He starts chatting like, oh, I'm actually impressed. Where'd you go? Oh, my muscular man friend here, he tripped over the power cord. And then he realizes that it's a guy again. And he's just like overly shocked. It's not him being like, oh my god, I can't believe he's doing this. It's more of this crushing annihilation, realizing that he can't bond over something that he thought he could bond over with. It was just completely absurd. So you get that other like interesting dynamic that I'm sure is not going to go completely away. I'm sure there's going to be more hacking situations down the road. So it's nice to have that. Then you have, of course, I've already mentioned Yusuke. He's had plenty of moments in episodes 1 and 2. But just his comedic flair, I think, adds this level of humor that you wouldn't have without him. He's someone who's not supernatural. He's someone who literally is just a normal person in the grand scheme of things, but he has this way of interlinking with the supernatural and not dying somehow, but also having this really funny comedy that, we can look at all of his interactions with Rizel, and it's amazing. So all that's just well and good. Frankenstein getting more and more pissed off that all of his housemates aren't doing shit, and the one person he doesn't want to do is Rizel because that's his master. And then he gets wrapped into cleaning because everyone is calling him out, being like, how's it fair for her to do it? She didn't dirty anything and you're letting him do nothing. And it's great because they can't say anything because as far as they know, Frankenstein's under their control with memory alterations. There's so many things happening. It's fun. It's interesting. And honestly, this was probably my favorite paced episode because for how many characters we focused on, they did a great job at really giving everyone their time to shine. And I honestly mean that, pretty much everyone. It felt like we just spread it around, and it honestly felt like a 30-minute episode. It didn't feel like a traditional 21-minute or actually 20-minute episode if we really take into consideration the opening and ending, because after the credit scene was literally like less than 30 seconds. But it just felt like so much happened, and even though it wasn't overly plot-related, a lot of it was slice of life and simple stuff. To me, that's what makes it so fun and why I really like Noblesse so much. It may not blow you away visually too much. There was obviously a really great action scene in the episode, but that wasn't the star of the show in the slightest to me. It just really feels like this show is doing everything it can to be extraordinary, and while I do get that all the things that I like about this show aren't as interesting and gripping to a lot of people who did like the previous webtoon adaptations, to me it just blends that normal society with supernatural element, where we do get quite a bit of that more mysterious, sinister plotline, where you have this entire organization after M21. They finally have got M21. What are they going to do with that intel? Because they still don't know Rizel is walking around that school. There's a lot that I like about this show, and just I can pick apart so many moments that made me laugh, like the whole idea that we have M21 who's the school bodyguard. He patrols the area, and Regis just has no idea that he can believe such an absurd lie that you're not stalking me. No, you're just patrolling the school. That makes no sense. This show's just great to me. I think it does a lot right, and even though it's not the flashiest and boldest of shows that you can watch this season, I do think it's severely underrated, and I hope more people continue to check it out as long as they watch that OVA first. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down below. Do you enjoy this show as much as me? As I do know there's a lot of webtoon readers being like, I'm really glad you like this show, but I've also seen quite a few people being like, you know what, just really isn't for me. Don't find it that fun. If you like it, have fun with it. And I totally get that. So I'd be interested in hearing, now that, because I know a lot of people follow that 3-episode rule, how are you feeling about Noblesse, and will you be continuing it? Whatever you're feeling, of course, let me know. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like to show your support and hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.